Barron Trump, the voice behind the silence. Introduction. For years, Barron Trump stood as a silent figure at the edge of American political spectacle, tall, reserved, largely removed from the chaos surrounding his family name. But in a twist that no one could have predicted, the world was shaken not by politics, scandal, or another Trump headline, but by music. At age 19, Barron Trump, the youngest son of Donald and Melania Trump, stepped onto a stage not to make a political statement but to sing. In an age where celebrity children pursue fame through fashion lines or reality television, Barron's rumored vocal talent was kept so tightly guarded that even entertainment journalists dismissed early reports as conspiracy theories. Until the moment he opened his mouth in front of a live audience. This is the imagined story of Barron Trump, an emerging musical enigma in a world that never expected him to speak, let alone sing. Early life, a silence that spoke volumes. Barron William Trump was born on March 20, 2006, into a life few could imagine. Growing up in the palatial surroundings of Trump Tower and later the White House, Barron's life was shaped by security, wealth, and constant public scrutiny. However, what set him apart was his near-total absence from the public discourse. Unlike the children of other prominent political families, Barron remained a mystery. His mother, Melania Trump, fiercely protected him from the spotlight, and it worked. Journalists rarely saw him. Photographers had to rely on long lenses to capture fleeting images. Even when he accompanied his parents on official trips or appeared at the White House, he seldom spoke publicly. Behind the scenes, however, the young Trump was developing an affinity for music. Melania, herself a former model with a taste for European art and classical aesthetics, ensured her son was educated in the arts. Rumors suggest he began piano lessons at the age of 6 and developed an early interest in jazz and soul. Friends of the Trump family later recounted private performances in the White House's lesser-known music room where Barron reportedly sang softly to piano accompaniment echoing through the marble halls like a secret. Discovery, a hidden voice emerges. It wasn't until his teenage years that Barron began to seriously consider music as more than a hobby. While enrolled at Oxbridge Academy in Palm Beach, he was known to be quiet, thoughtful, and unusually tall, standing over 6 feet 7 inches by his late teens. But it was in the school's soundproofed music studio that something unexpected began to develop, a rich, smooth baritone voice reminiscent of a young Michael Bublé with the emotional range of Sam Smith and the restraint of Norah Jones. A close friend, who remained anonymous, described a late-night recording session where Barron sang an original ballad titled Echoes of Marble. The song, layered over simple piano chords, showcased a melancholic introspection that stunned everyone in the room. He didn't sound like a politician's son, the friend said. He sounded like someone who had lived through something, like he carried the burden of silence for years and it had finally found a way to speak. The debut, a performance no one expected. The world learned of Barron Trump's vocal gift in the most unexpected way, through a live, unannounced performance at the Montreux Jazz Festival in Switzerland. It started as a rumor, tweets suggesting a mystery performer would close the Friday night set. Then, as the crowd waited under soft lights, a tall figure walked onto the stage, clad in a black suit, his presence both regal and unsure. Cameras flashed. A hush fell. And then came the moment, a quiet, jazz-infused rendition of Billy Joel's And So It Goes. The internet exploded. He sang like he was mourning something, wrote one critic. It was fragile, haunting, and utterly unforgettable. Barron didn't speak to the audience. He sang 2 songs, And So It Goes, and an original titled First Sun Blues. Then he bowed and disappeared backstage. No press conference. No encore. No statement. Musical style and influences. Barron's musical style, as imagined in this profile, is a hybrid of jazz, soul, and contemporary indie. With a deep respect for classic vocalists Sinatra, Nat King Cole, Nina Simone, he combines old-school elegance with modern melancholy. His debut EP, Whispers of Fifth Avenue, released 6 months after his performance, featured 5 original songs, all written by him. Tracks like Shadow in the Tower and Under the Rose Garden hinted at a childhood marked by surveillance and solitude. Critics praised his lyrical subtlety, comparing him to early Leonard Cohen. The instrumentation, sparse and piano-heavy, gave his voice room to shine. But it wasn't just the music that caught the world's attention, it was the vulnerability. For someone born into privilege and notoriety, Barron's voice resonated with pain, uncertainty, and a longing for identity. Public and political reactions. The reaction was swift and varied. Supporters of the Trump family hailed Barron's debut as a sign of independent spirit, noting how he had chosen music instead of politics. Donald Trump himself tweeted, "Very proud of Barron. Tremendous talent, wonderful tone. A new Trump voice, musical, not political." Others were more skeptical. Some critics accused him of repackaging privilege as artistry. Others questioned whether his entry into music was part of a larger PR strategy. But what couldn't be denied was the voice itself. Even the harshest skeptics admitted he could sing. Former First Lady Michelle Obama reportedly told a friend that she found the performance haunting and unexpectedly moving. The album, Marble Echoes? Following his EP's success, Barron released a full-length studio album titled Marble Echoes, a 12-track exploration of fame, isolation, and inherited legacy. The title referred both to the marble-lined rooms of Trump Tower and the silent echoes of his youth spent behind closed doors. Standout tracks included Golden Elevator, a jazzy narrative of growing up in Trump Tower. Father's Shadow, a soul-infused piece exploring the identity struggles of being Donald Trump's son. East Wing Lullaby, a minimalist piano piece that some interpreted as an ode to Melania. The album climbed to number 4 on the Billboard 200 within 2 weeks, and Rolling Stone called it the most unexpected debut of the decade. Interviews and persona. Barron remained largely enigmatic, granting only one major interview to The New Yorker where he talked about the weight of watching the world argue over your family while you're just trying to find your voice. "I didn't want to be heard until I had something worth saying," he said. "And when I finally sang, I wanted it to be honest." He described singing as the only space where no one interrupts, no one tweets, and no one expects you to have the answers. Legacy and cultural impact. Within a year of his debut, Barron Trump had become an unlikely cultural icon, hailed not for controversy but for artistic vulnerability. Young people resonated with his themes of identity and estrangement, especially those growing up in the shadow of powerful parents. A YouTube documentary titled Barron, The First Son Finds a Voice gained over 50 million views, chronicling his rise from obscurity to musical acclaim. Universities began including his lyrics in contemporary poetry courses. A Harvard music professor called him a case study in rebranding trauma into melody. And yet Barron remained mostly withdrawn. He seldom appeared in public, rarely gave interviews, and never embarked on a full tour. He remained a voice in the shadows, singing, yes, but never shouting. The future, an ongoing story. At the end of Marble Echoes, there is a hidden track, an instrumental piano piece lasting just 2 minutes and 17 seconds. No title. No lyrics. Just soft notes, hesitant yet intentional. Critics speculated it symbolized an ending. Others believed it hinted at more to come. Barron refused to comment. What remains is an unexpected, fictional portrait of a young man who, had the world been slightly different, might have captured not just headlines, but hearts through music. 1 year after Marble Echoes. When Barron Trump released Marble Echoes last year, the music world was stunned. Critics, fans, and skeptics alike were caught off guard by the son of a former president emerging as one of the most quietly powerful voices in contemporary soul. But as the 1-year anniversary of the album passes, a new question arises: what comes next? In the years since his debut, Barron has made only 3 public appearances, a brief cameo at the Grammy Awards where he presented the award for Best Jazz Vocal Album, an impromptu performance at a charity gala in Vienna, and a visit to a Brooklyn youth music program. Still no tour. Still no interviews beyond that lone New Yorker sit-down. He is, in every sense, a ghost except for his voice, which continues to resonate. Rumors of a second album. There are whispers, quiet, scattered, often contradictory, that Barron is working on a second album, rumored to be titled Silent Aria. A leaked studio photo, allegedly from Electric Lady Studios in New York, shows a tall figure at the piano, head bowed, a coffee cup on the floor next to him. Audio engineers who've worked nearby describe low, cinematic strings and vocals that sound more raw, more urgent. Industry insiders suggest the new material is darker and more experimental, blending orchestral elements with ambient production. One source, speaking anonymously, said, "It's like if Nick Cave and James Blake had a child and that child had a ghost for a father." If Marble Echoes was about Barron processing his past childhood in the White House, a father whose name means everything and nothing, Silent Aria seems poised to explore something even more personal: agency, adulthood, and the cost of carving your own space. Fan reactions and cult following. What began as stunned curiosity has evolved into a devoted fanbase. On TikTok and X, formerly Twitter, Barron's fans, many of whom call themselves echoers, analyze every lyric, every rare photograph, and every piano chord. One popular theory suggests that Father's shadow uses Morse code in the background percussion. Another claims that the visual art for Marble Echoes contains a hidden Fibonacci sequence linking track lengths. Whether these are true or not hardly matters. What's clear is that Barron's fans don't just love his music. They study it. An 18-year-old fan from Oregon said, "Barron's voice makes me feel like I'm not alone in being misunderstood. He doesn't yell. He doesn't rant. He just sings what hurts." He's the anti-celebrity celebrity. He's the only one I'd wait in line in the rain to see, and he'd never even ask. Barron's decision to stay mostly silent, to release music with minimal promotion, and to avoid social media has only deepened the sense of mystique. Collaborations on the horizon. Several artists have publicly expressed interest in working with him. Billie Eilish, in an interview with Zane Lowe, said, "I don't know if he's real or a dream, but I'd love to do something with him. His vibe is something else." Jazz pianist and composer Robert Glasper reportedly invited Barron to join a secret recording session in LA, though the results remain unreleased. One confirmed collaboration came from British cellist Sheku Kanemason, who hinted at a modern requiem featuring a spoken-sung poem written by Barron. That track, unnamed and unreleased, was performed once at a private event in Paris for a United Nations cultural initiative. Inside the mind of a recluse. What drives someone like Barron Trump to retreat into art rather than fame? Psychologists and pop culture analysts have weighed in. Dr. Andrea Kim, a media psychologist, said, "Barron grew up as the most visible invisible person in America. He had power in the abstract but no platform of his own. Singing gave him a language the media couldn't misquote. Others believe his art is a form of subtle rebellion, not against his family necessarily, but against the rigid expectations imposed on him from childhood." A former White House staffer who taught Barron civics during his homeschooling years recalls, "He was quiet but not passive. He asked big questions. He was fascinated by people who disappeared from history after doing one beautiful thing. Maybe that's who he wants to be." The Lost performance Montauk. One of the most mythologized moments in Barron's post-debut year is the so-called Montauk performance, an unconfirmed, semi-secret open-air event attended by fewer than 150 people on the shores of Long Island. According to attendee reports, Barron sang 4 new songs at sunset, barefoot, dressed in white, accompanied only by a violinist and a looping pedal. The wind, they say, made his voice sound even more fragile. No official footage was released, but snippets filmed by phones have been stitched together into a grainy 8-minute video titled Barron, Shorelines. It has since garnered over 9 million views on YouTube despite takedown attempts. If the performance was indeed real, one lyric stands out. "I'm not my father's future / I'm just my mother's sigh." What comes next? A cryptic message appeared on Barron's official website, which contains only a black screen and a piano chord that changes monthly. On April 20th, 2025, the site displayed one line in white serif font. "The aria is not for applause." Fans believe this is a confirmation of Silent Aria as the next project. Others worry it signals a final album and exit strategy for someone who never wanted the spotlight to begin with. Still, record stores have begun pre-order listings for a vinyl release under the pseudonym B. William, further feeding speculation. Whether Barron is building towards something or slowly fading from view remains unclear. Closing thoughts. In a world driven by spectacle, Barron Trump remains a paradox, born into noise but choosing silence. His music doesn't ask for followers, it asks for listeners. Deep ones. Patient ones. And whether Silent Aria arrives next month or next year, one thing is certain. We're witnessing a rare artist who sings not for fame, but for freedom. for selfhood, for stillness in a world that never stops talking. As one fan wrote on a message board, "He's not trying to be your idol. He's trying to be your echo." Conclusion. In imagining Barron Trump as a singer, we see the potential within all public figures to defy expectations, transcend identity, and reinvent themselves. Whether real or imagined, his voice, deep, melancholic, resilient, reminds us that sometimes silence is not emptiness. It is waiting, and when it finally breaks, it can be beautiful. The Lyric Hall is small, historic, tucked into a quiet Manhattan street. With its arched ceilings, gold leaf trim, and velvet seats, it feels more like an opera house than a concert venue. That night, only 400 people sat in hushed anticipation. There was no opening act, no intro video, no flashing lights, just a grand piano, a single hanging mic, and then him, tall, pale, slim in a navy coat and black slacks. Barron Trump walked across the stage like a man carrying a secret. The air felt electric, not with fanfare, but reverence. For a moment, the crowd didn't even clap, they held their breath. Then he sat, and he sang. 1. Glass Garden opening song. Barron opened with Glass Garden, a brand new track unreleased anywhere. It began with soft, arpeggiated piano. His voice entered slowly, low and smoky, almost conversational at first. "She raised me where roses could not bloom. In a room without windows, with wallpaper of clouds." The metaphor was unmistakable. A child grown in beauty and confinement. His falsetto lifted on the chorus, tinged with fragility but perfectly controlled. "I watered my silence with tears you couldn't see." Gasps were audible in the room. Some audience members closed their eyes. Some wiped tears. There was no movement on stage. No production tricks. Just a voice, one that sounded older than 19, steeped in ache. 2. Fifth Avenue Snowfall, jazz rework. Next came Fifth Avenue Snowfall, a rework of a track from Marble Echoes. Here, it was jazz-infused, soft brushes on drums, a stand-up bass behind him. He leaned into the microphone, snapping softly between lines. "Everyone's watching the snow fall on gold. No one sees the boy with frost in his throat." His phrasing was masterful, a channeling Chet Baker, but more cautious. He whispered the bridge more than sang it, his tone trembling with restraint. The crowd applauded gently at first. He gave only the slightest nod. Still no words. Just music. 3. Mother's Song unreleased. Then came the heart of the evening, Mother's Song. The stage went completely dark except for a single spotlight. Barron stood up, moved to center stage, and faced the audience directly. No piano. No instruments. A backing string quartet softly entered from the shadows. He began to sing a cappella. "She braided silence into my hair, folded lullabies in my coat pocket. While the world asked me who I was, she told me I didn't have to answer." The entire room stilled. You could hear someone breathing in the 10th row. The song was both lullaby and lament, dedicated, clearly, to Melania Trump, who raised him mostly alone amid relentless noise. The final note, an aching G minor, hung in the air like frost. No one clapped immediately. The silence was louder than the music. And then, slowly, they rose to their feet. 4. First Sun Blues Encore. After a short pause, he returned with First Sun Blues, the song that first made him a musical mystery at the Montreux Jazz Festival. This time, it was reimagined, deeper in tone, more defiant. He sang with a quiet fire. "Born in a tower, taught not to cry. Signed autographs in my sleep. Lived 18 years in someone else's name." A sudden key change in the bridge jolted the room, followed by a 3-second pause where he let silence fill in the pain. He ended on a whisper as if he were singing just for himself. No one in the room dared to breathe until he left the stage. No final bow. No words. Just a single backward glance. Behind the performance. Those close to the performance later revealed that Barron had been rehearsing in private for nearly 6 months. Every string arrangement was written by him. He refused auto-tune. Refused pre-recorded vocals. Even the lighting was his design. According to the venue's manager, he had only one instruction for the night. Let the silence feel as important as the sound. Audience reaction. As people exited the Lyric Hall, there was an eerie softness. No chatter. No screaming fans. Just thoughtful nods. One elderly man said quietly to his partner, "I think I just saw someone become." A 22-year-old music blogger tweeted, I didn't go to a concert. I went to a confessional wrapped in jazz. Another post read. It felt like we all witnessed someone heal in real time. Legacy in the making. It's too early to say what Barron Trump's full musical legacy will be. But if this night is any indication, it's something unprecedented, a story not about rebellion but reclamation. Not about politics but poetry. He may never sell out arenas. He may never have a #1 radio hit. But what Barron Trump is creating, song by song, is a genre of his own, introspective jazz elegy. And if you were in the room the night he sang at Lyric Hall, you'll carry that voice with you for the rest of your life.